Well, it's been a little while since we've been in the Psalms, but I'm about to do Psalm 6 today. Last time we were in Psalm 5, and Psalm 5 we saw was very much a kind of prepared prayer. There was a great detail and methodical approach to it. Psalm 6 is not like that. Psalm 6 is a prayer really in the midst of the depth of a crisis. And Dale Ralph Davis calls it the wet prayer. And you'll see why that is as we read it together. So let me read Psalm 6 for us. O Lord, rebuke me not in your anger, nor discipline me in your wrath. Be gracious to me, O Lord, for I am languishing. Heal me, O Lord, for my bones are troubled. My soul is also greatly troubled. But you, O Lord, how long? Turn, O Lord, deliver my life. Save me for the sake of your steadfast love. For in death there is no remembrance of you. In Sheol who will give you praise? I am weary with my moaning. Every night I flood my bed with tears. I drench my couch with my weeping. My eye wastes away because of grief. It grows weak because of all my foes. Depart from me, all you workers of evil. For the Lord has heard the sound of my weeping. The Lord has heard my plea. The Lord accepts my prayer. All my enemies shall be ashamed and greatly troubled. They shall turn back and be put to shame in a moment. Well, perhaps you can guess why it's called the wet prayer. You'll have seen right in the middle there, verse 6. I'm weary of moaning. Every night I flood my bed with tears. This isn't a prayer coming all prepared and all in the right order and well constructed. This is the prayer of someone crying themselves to sleep. And perhaps that's more how you feel at the moment. Not that kind of well-rehearsed prayer to the Lord, but the prayer of crisis, the prayer of trial, the prayer of despair, of not knowing what to say or how to say it. And that's the reality of prayer sometimes. That's the reality of King David as he prays from a bed of tears. But I think one of the things that's striking as we just celebrated Easter is just how one of his main concerns is answered by Easter. One of his main concerns there in verse 5 is death. For that in death there is no remembrance of you. In Sheol, who will give you praise? Well, one of his concerns, one of the things that troubles him is death. And it's striking that as we celebrated Easter, death is transformed. In Jesus, in seeing his resurrection, we know that death is not the end. We know that death is a defeated enemy. Death is just the beginning of life to come with Jesus. But that's one of his big concerns. He's surrounded by enemies. He's fearing death. But within that, he's found some hope. And the hope is, of course, in the Lord. He calls out, he says, turn, O Lord, deliver my life, verse 4. He feels slightly abandoned. He says, turn, O Lord, come back to me. And the Lord does turn to him, doesn't he? Do you see there in verses 9, 8, 9 and 10, he describes the Lord turning back to him. The Lord has heard the sound of his weeping. The Lord has heard my plea. The Lord accepts my prayer. 3 times repeated to make the point. The Lord really has heard. I'm not weeping alone. I'm not moaning alone. I'm not despairing alone. The Lord is with me. The Lord has heard. And it's at that point that David can speak to his enemies. He can speak to his fears and say, now you turn. So verse 8 he says, depart from me, you workers of evil. And verse 10 he says, all my enemies shall be put to shame and they shall turn back. You see, as the Lord turns to David, as the Lord hears his prayer, as the Lord is with him in the midst of his trial, So he can say to his enemies, to his fears, now you turn, now you go away. That's the great confidence, the great hope that David has as he prays, that even in his distress, in his fears, in his trials, he knows the Lord will turn, he knows the Lord will hear. And so he has confidence to say to his enemies, now you turn, now you go. I think a great passage to read alongside this is Romans chapter 8. And there's that bit, particularly verse 26 of Romans chapter 8, where it talks about the Spirit interceding for us. When we're not quite sure what to pray, when we're groaning, when we're moaning, when we just want to cry out to the Lord, but we don't know what to say or how to say it. God himself helps us to pray. And I think, Romans 8:26 really echoes what David's trying to get at here. So perhaps that's you today. Perhaps that's you feeling like, I'm not even sure I know what to pray. I'm just too distressed, too upset, too fearful to know what to pray. Well, the Lord knows, the Lord hears, and the Lord is with you. And as we know and experience the Lord's presence with us, so it is that we have the confidence to say, with the message of Easter just behind us, to say, actually death has been defeated. That greatest fear, the greatest trial that perhaps we know, that has been defeated. And so we have confidence to pray on, to have confidence to keep trusting the Lord, even when we just want to curl up and cry, because he is with us forever. Amen.